to Promontory Summit. So FYI, all the parking passes are already gone. And so if you don't have one of those, you might want to try carpooling with somebody this morning, but get on the road quickly. That main coverage, again, starting at 11:30 on KSL TV.
Will they have donuts for everybody up there?
They're going to have all kinds of stuff going on up there.
Cool.
As Mike said on the morning show, it's old-timey. They got all kinds of old-timey things happening.
Right.
So
it's almost like back
I know, it's crazy. It's kind of like, we were just watching Field of Dreams. It's kind of like you see that line of cars.
It was one of the greatest infrastructure projects in our country. And within 3 years of its completion, trains could travel from New York City to San Francisco in just 1 week. Prior to that, travelers endured up to 6 months or more of dangerous travel by ship or covered wagons to cross the continent. The ability to move people and goods across the continent at much reduced time and lower cost led to explosive economic growth.
In the summer of 1862, enveloped by the demands of defending the nation from armed rebellion, President Abraham Lincoln signed legislation authorizing the Transcontinental Railroad, a far-sighted act for a commander-in-chief buffeted by the winds of war. Hope in a time of fear, optimism in a moment of pessimism, a thought of the future amid the storms of the present. The Transcontinental Railroad stands even now as an emblem of American boldness and of American union. If Americans want to know what is possible, come here. If they want to know what can happen when government and the private sector cooperate rather than clash, come here. If they want to know how to build a nation worth fighting for, come here. And if they want to know why a spirit of union matters, come here. And if they want to understand how the faith of Jefferson and Lincoln and TR and FDR and John Kennedy and Ronald Reagan, a faith founded on the conviction that tomorrow can be better than today, and how that faith can find tangible expression, come here. The story is not perfect, but then neither are we. History tells us that we rise when we build and we thrive when we give everyone what Lincoln called a fair chance. A fair chance. Such was the animating impulse behind the Golden Spike, and big ideas and big dreams are the stuff of the best of American history. And in that history lies our hope. Thank you.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce a fellow resident of Sacramento, Dr. H.W. Harkness, who will present 2 railroad spikes to Dr. Thomas C. Durant of the Union Pacific Railroad and Governor Leland Stanford of the Central Pacific Railroad. Dr. Durant and Governor Stanford will then place these spikes into holes that have already been drilled in the laurelwood tie. These are not ordinary spikes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are golden spikes made from pure California Gold.
Gentlemen of the Pacific Railroad, and those of you who have met with us, the last spike needed to unite the Atlantic and the Pacific by a new line of trade and commerce is about to be driven to its place. To perform this act, the East and the West have come together. Never since history commenced her record of human events has man been called upon to meet the completion of a work so magnificent in contemplation and so marvelous in execution. California, within whose borders and by whose citizens the Pacific Railroad was inaugurated, desires to express her appreciation of the vast importance to her and her sister states of the great enterprise which by joint action is about to be consummated. From her mines of gold has been forged a spike. From her laurel woods has been hewn a tie. And by the hands of her citizens, she offers them to become part of this great highway which is about to unite her in closer fellowship with her sisters of the Atlantic. From her bosom was taken the first soil. Let hers be the last tie and the last spike. And with them accept the hopes and wishes of her people that the success of your enterprise will not stop short of its brightest promise. In conclusion, I should like to draw your attention to this spike, the gift of David Hughes of San Francisco. On its head is inscribed the last spike. On 3 sides, the names of railroad officials, and on the 4th side, this sentence. May God continue the unity of our country as this railroad unites the 2 great oceans of the world. Dr.
Absolutely beautiful. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. F.A. Tritle, a United States Railroad Commissioner and candidate for governor of the great state of Nevada. He will present a spike of pure silver from the famed Comstock lode on behalf of the people of Nevada. Mr. Tritle.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. To the iron of the East and the gold of the West, Nevada adds her link of silver to span the continent and wed the oceans.
We are highly honored today with the presence of the Honorable Anson P.K. Safford, who is en route to Arizona as the newly appointed territorial governor. He was kind enough to delay his journey in order to make a presentation on behalf of the Arizona Territory. Governor Safford.
Ribbed with iron, clad in silver, and crowned with gold, Arizona presents her offering that has banded the continent and directed the pathway to commerce.
And now, friends, it is not only my duty, but my honor and privilege to introduce a man of vision, a man of courage, a humanitarian, and one who is highly esteemed by those of us who call him our friend. He is a Californian whose farsightedness has contributed in large measure to the success of this great enterprise. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Central Pacific Railroad, Governor Leland Stanford.
Gentlemen, the Pacific Railroad companies accept with pride and satisfaction these gold and silver tokens of your appreciation of the importance of our enterprise to the material interests of the whole country, north, south, east, and west. These gifts shall receive a fitting place in the superstructure of our road. But before driving the last spike in the completion of the Pacific Railroad, allow me to express the hope that the great importance which you are pleased to attach to our undertaking may be in every respect fully realized. This Atlantic and Pacific and connecting to commerce, a new line of transit will prove, we trust, the speedy forerunner of increased facilities. The day is not far distant when 3 tracks will be found necessary to accommodate the commerce and travel which shall seek transit across this continent. 8 will move only one way on each track, and at rates of speed to answer the demands of cheapness and time. In conclusion, I might add, we hope to do ultimately that which is now impossible on long lines: transport coarse, heavy, and cheap products at living rates to the trade.
Thank you, Governor Stanford, for your astute and timely remarks. We regret that Dr. Durant is suffering from a severe headache and has temporarily retired to his quarters. In his absence, and in the absence of the President of the Union Pacific Railroad, Mr. Oliver Ames, we have asked General Grenville Dodge, Chief Engineer, to represent his railroad with a few remarks.
Mr. Mills, thank you. Gentlemen, the great senator from Missouri, Thomas Hart Benton, proposes someday a giant statue of Columbus should be erected on the highest peak of the Rocky Mountains, pointing westward, denoting this as the great route across our continent. Today, you have made that prophecy a fact. This is the way to India.
Ladies and gentlemen, that moment for which you and the entire nation have been waiting, the driving of the last spike, is at hand. At this time, we wish to commend both railroad companies and their workers for their efficiency and hard work in bringing this monumental undertaking to its successful fruition in a record 6½ years instead of the 12 years allotted to the venture. A final presentation in the form of a silver-plated spike mall will be made by Mr. L.W. Coe, President of the Pacific Union Express Company, after which Governor Stanford and Dr. Durant will make a few ceremonial taps on the precious metal spikes with the mall. Mr. Coe. Thank you.
Railroad officials, honored guests, and friends, it is the honor of the officers and workers of the Pacific Union Railroad Company to add their congratulations upon the completion of this modern-day miracle.
This silver-plated spike mall is symbolic of our good wishes.
Nice and light. At this point, I should explain that the last spike is a regular iron railroad spike that can be driven with the maul. Both the spike and the maul have been wired to the transcontinental telegraph line so that people everywhere can hear the blows as the spike is driven. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived. Boston and New Orleans have wired that they are ready and waiting. Indeed, throughout the length and breadth of the country, people everywhere are waiting at every Western Union station. As Mr. Schilling gives a signal that the last spike is driven, a magnetic ball will fall in the dome of the national capital. In San Francisco, the fire alarm bell will ring. A volley of 200 rounds will be fired in salute at Fort Point. And in Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell will ring again.
Promontory to the country, almost ready. Dr. Durant has adjusted the spike. The spike will soon be driven. The signal will be 3 dots for the commencement of the blows.
Hey, mister.
We please get a real railroad worker up here to finish this railroad.
Promontory to the country. Bulletin D O N E Henceforth, there will be the one Pacific Railroad of these United States.
Three cheers for the Union Pacific Railroad. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, 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 hip.
Some of you aren't hip-hipping now. Three cheers for the Central Pacific Railroad. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray!
At that moment, one era ended and another began. The golden spike became a symbol of hope for a better way of life with new challenges yet to be accomplished.
Crazy, Judah. He took his big ideas and told them to anyone who would listen. He made the treacherous ocean voyage around the tip of South America 3 times, trying to convince politicians in Washington, D.C., then the ones in California, and then back again.
Each trip took 6 weeks, but that is much shorter than the 6 months it took to travel on land. A transcontinental railroad is the only answer.
I've been thinking that same thing.
Oh, how long till the sun gives away, doing all the work no one else would take, left with the echoes ringing midnight.
Transcontinental Railroad was and still stands as one of the greatest examples of the true spirit of America.
I feel it in my bones, the future holds. I feel like we're on the side, the fortune that we're going on. One as one as one as one as one. 'Cause when you realize what you really want, you take your halves and you make them one. We don't know what can be done. Just strangers before, dividing unite as one, as one, as one, as one.
Gentlemen, right here, move over. We're going to go. Take care of
And you will notice when the 119 was backing up, it has a lot of black smoke coming out of its stack, and that is because the 119 is a coal-burning locomotive, and that is what it originally burned in 1869. The Jupiter, which will be coming by in just a few minutes, you'll notice that it smokes a little bit different, and that's because the Jupiter burns wood just like it would have in 1869. It also smells like a campfire when it goes by. Oh, looks like our 119's coming forward again. And the number 119 on the engine here indicates that it was the 119th locomotive to come out of the Union Pacific Line. spike and a gold and silver plated spike. So there are actually 4 original spikes. And if you had a chance to view our laurelwood tie, it has pre-drilled holes. For the ceremony, they took those precious metals, put them in the holes, tapped them lightly, took them back out, and probably put them in their pocket. That was what they did for the ceremony. None of those were ever driven into the railroad. The last spike to be driven in was actually an iron spike, and it was driven into one of the tops. Oh, the Jupiter's coming back for more. It only does this on May 10th. Between 25 and 30 miles before it has to stop, and that is because it has to refill with water every 25 to 30 miles. So these locomotives do run